Hey folks, Rob here, and I thought today I'd just come to you and would do a look at a couple of the Beretta 92 clones I have. These are both clones of Beretta 92s. The first one I have here, and I've had this gun for years, this is the Taurus PT100. This one is in 40 caliber. I've had this gun for several years. It's been a great gun, other than the fact that when I first bought it, the right side safety lever broke off, and I had a few issues with Taurus. Long story short is I shot it for years with the safety missing from this side, never affected the functionality of it, and just vowed I'd never buy another Taurus again. So anyway, that's a different story. But anyway, this has been a great gun other than that problem right there. This is basically the same version as the PT92 in 9mm. They're same gun, just this one happens to have a 40 caliber barrel set up for 40 caliber, whereas the 92 is in 9mm. This one doesn't have the rail. This one they quit importing these about 93, from best I can gather. I picked this one up after that. From what I can read about this gun is that these were a order by some police or military agency that fell through, and these were some surplus guns that were part of that contract that never went through. The difference in this gun is when I bought it, it came with three. These are 11 round magazines, but they have a +2 base plate, so these hold 13 rounds. It came with 3 magazines. This gun does not have the Taurus safety lock. That was one of the things that is different. I've never seen a Taurus semi-automatic that didn't have the Taurus safety lock. It does have a lanyard loop installed there on the heel, which is something that I've never seen on another Taurus sidearm. But yeah, from what I can gather, these were part of a military or police order that fell through, and the guns got imported into the United States and sold off. I got this gun relatively cheap when I bought it. I think it was under $300, new at Bud's. They just had a few of these come into the United States, and I luckily snagged one up while they had them. So that's the Taurus, and of course they're made in Brazil. Basically a copy of the 92 FS, with the exception that the Tauruses use a frame-mounted safety decocker, as opposed to the Beretta's slide-mounted safety decocker safety. But this has been a great gun, and I've had this gun for years. Put a lot of rounds through that gun. It's the only 40 I currently own, and I keep it just because, you know, it's the only 40 I got, and I have quite a bit of ammunition for 40 that I've gathered up over the years, and so that's why I hang on to that one. This is the newest gun I picked up, and this is the Girsan Regard MC, and this is a Turkish-made 9mm. And if you watch my video recently, you'll see that where I installed the Cool Hand G10 grips on this gun. But this gun is more of a direct clone of a Beretta. From what I can gather, almost all parts from a Beretta will fit on this gun, maybe with the exception of the barrel and the locking block in there. It's a little bit different. Girsan uses a little different cut on their locking block as opposed to the Beretta. But this gun has the rail on the side, or the Picatinny rail, where this one did not. And like I said, this is probably a more one-to-one clone of the Beretta as opposed to the Taurus. And I don't know what all parts off of a Beretta would be interchangeable with the Taurus. Maybe there may be some parts in there, but I'm not sure if all the parts from a Beretta will work on a Taurus. where from what I've gathered, most of the parts will work on this Girsan. So anyway, the guns are basically the same as far as height and weight and length. We'll take the magazines out so we can get a little better comparison here, but you know, the guns are for all intents and purposes the same. Let's see if the magazine, so the Taurus magazine probably would go into the Regard if it wasn't for the lanyard loop on the bottom. This has the extended base plate, but yeah, doesn't lock in, so apparently the notches are different. Yeah, I can see that right offhand. The notch on the Taurus is in a different position, wider and lower than on the, so a Beretta magazine would not work in that Taurus, because a Girsan will accept Beretta magazines. But anyway, as far as length, width, these guns are pretty similar. I did notice that the trigger guard on the Taurus is a little thicker, a little heavier made. This is machined a little thinner. It's more. This has a better look to it. This might be stronger, but this is more, has a better look, I think. But operations are the same for either gun, and these guns are unloaded. These guns have no ammunition in them. But to disassemble it, the Girsan, you would basically decock it. You'd push your offside button here, rotate your lever down, and the slide and barrel all just slide forward. With the Taurus, it's basically the same operation. Always check to make sure your gun is unloaded, and it is. Drop the hammer, push your button on the side, and rotate. And that is the Taurus. So, but I did notice that the Taurus has a thicker slide, and I don't know if that's just due to the fact that it's 40 caliber. I don't have a PT92 in order to judge the slides with, but I do know that the slide is thicker than on the Girsan. The Girsan is thinner, if you can see that there. Is definitely a thinner, and the milling on the slides are both pretty good. I do think that the Girsan is slightly better than the milling on the Taurus. I do see a few machine marks down there on the Taurus. The Girsan is actually milled really nice. It's a nicely built gun. The Taurus has a stainless steel guide rod, and of course your locking block lifts up and your barrel comes out. This uses a Beretta style locking block, and I know that the locking block on the Girsan is slightly different than that of the Beretta. It also uses a steel guide rod, but the barrels are, and the Girsan does have a chrome lined barrel. This barrel is chrome lined, where the Taurus is not. But barrels are basically the same length. There's literally no difference in the barrels. As you can see, the Girsan barrel is chrome plated, and the Taurus barrel appears to be chrome plated too, and it's more highly polished right there. The Taurus barrel has a higher polish on the feed raft than the Girsan. But anyway, the barrels are basically the same. The locking blocks are slightly different. As you can see, the locking block on the Taurus is more of a square block, where the locking blocks on the Girsan have a shoulder, an angle cut back on the shoulder. So there is a slight difference in the locking blocks themselves. I was going to see if maybe if I can get one of these to come out. Let's see. I always struggle with getting these out. You have to get them just right. So here is the locking block on the Taurus. You can see the shape of it, and the locking block on the Girsan. They're pretty similar. There's not a lot of difference in them. Like I said, the only real difference is actually, if you look from them from that angle, they look to be exactly the same. But the Girsan has a more angled cut here on the side. If you can see that, this one is more square. The Taurus is square, where the Girsan has more of a angle backwards, and that corresponds with the cut in the barrel on the Girsan. Is, if you look in here, you can see that cut is slight. This is angled forward, so this is in there kind of at an angle, where the Taurus and the Berettas have more of a straight up and down locking notch in the so let's make sure we get the right one back in the right gun. So this is my Taurus, and we'll slide that back in. So we have our Taurus locking block reinstalled, and we'll reinstall our Girsan. And to reinstall these, you just slide them through. You can see this has a angled cut on that right there. You need to get this up just above that angle, and slide that in and over, and push it down. So anyway, guys, the guns are pretty much they're almost identical, with the exception of the cut in the locking block and the slide. But to reinsert your barrel, you would simply put it back in with your locking block down. Take your guide rod, push it in, insert it back, and that is the Girsan slide put back together. And for the Taurus, same principle. Insert your barrel. Make sure your locking block is down. Insert your recoil spring and guide rod, and there you go. So the frames on these guns are very, very similar. The slide rails are very similar. The Taurus does have this notch cut out in the slide rail, and I don't know what purpose that serves. If it has to do with something of the safety, well, I can see right now it has for this magazine, or this disconnector, to come up past that. So that's what this is. That's what that half notch is for. If you can see your plunger there on your firing pin safety, but so that's what would come up through that notch. But the frames are very similar in size, shape. The rails are similar. I did notice that the Girsan, or the Taurus, has a thicker slide, but it has a thinner frame. I don't know if you can see that right there, but the metal in the frame is quite a bit thinner than it is on the Girsan, where the Girsan has a thinner slide. So it would appear that the frame of the Girsan is beefed up more so than the frame on the Taurus. And that could be just to the fact that this has a 1913 Picatinny rail on it. That could just be increased in size for that alone. But anyway, that's a look at both of my clones there on the Beretta clones. Uh, both of them are great guns. Let's reassemble each of these, and we'll put the Taurus back together. And to do that, you simply slide your slide over, and you'll notice on this side that when you push it back, rotate your lever down, and you're good to go. And that is the Taurus reassembled. We'll reassemble the Girsan. Same thing. Push it on. And the Girsan just it kicks its lever back on its own. But anyway, as far as the feel, I don't know if you can hear that. The Girsan is very, very smooth. It just slides on that rail. It's very, very nice finish on that. Very tight. Whereas the Taurus is smooth. It's smooth, but it's not as smooth. Of course, it's got a heavier recoil spring for the 40 caliber, so it is not. But the Girsan is definitely a smoother gun. Now, as far as triggers goes, the Girsan has a pretty heavy trigger pull. I don't know. I don't have a trigger pull gauge, so I'm not going to guess, because, you know, people always respond and say, you know, why give something if you don't know? So I'm not going to say what it is, because I don't know. The single action pull is got a little bit of take up in it, and then it just snaps. So it's heavy on the double action, and single action is pretty good. Now the Taurus, this thing has one of the nicest triggers of any double single action gun I've ever had. It's heavy, but it is smooth. That is one of the smoothest triggers. It's definitely, if you put them both in your hand and you pull both the triggers, the Taurus just blows the Girsan out of the water. Single action pull on the Taurus is really good too. You do have that take up. Of course, that's your bar pulling there, your trigger bar, and but the trigger on this is so much nicer. You take up your slack there in your trigger, and it's just this has an outstanding trigger. And like I said, these were supposedly made for a police or military contract that didn't happen, and possibly the triggers were tuned at the factory. I don't know that to be the case, but this definitely does have a very nice trigger. Width of the guns are, I really can't tell a lot of difference in the width. Just by looking at it, can't really tell. The Taurus has these serrations in the back of the grip, and so does the Girsan. The Girsan has the finger grooves milled into it, and these finger grooves are actually in the right place for finger grooves. You know, a lot of guns, they want to make your fingers ride in a weird area, but these were done right. So anyway, guys, I thought we would just take a little time today, and we would look at my two Beretta 92 clones that I own. I'm looking forward to getting out and shooting the Girsan and put a few rounds to it. I haven't shot it yet, so we'll get to that as soon as the weather breaks up. As we speak right now, eastern Kentucky's getting pelted again with another big winter storm, so power may go out, but you know, we'll just have to get through it. Anyway, guys, I appreciate everybody watching and taking the time. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and if you're not a subscriber, feel free to subscribe. I appreciate everybody watching, and until the next video, we'll see you later.